sa karanasan po, tingnan ba na kasalanan ng media?
Media educators and lawyers call to defend press freedom.
This corruption in media won't be reduced to
Good evening. You're watching News Cafe on the Solar News channel. I'm Mai Rodriguez, sitting in for Jane Magsaysay. Tonight, we will be discussing media's responsibility, freedom, and security in the Philippines. Joining me are two of the most respected journalists in the country. He was one of the show's first guests, a journalist for 40 years, publisher and chairman of the editorial board of Business World, and chairman of the board of trustees of the Watchdog Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility. He is Vergel Santos. Good evening, Vergel.
Hi, Mai.
All right, he is a journalist and story editor for ABS-CBN Global, a director of the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines, and the organizer of the November 23 movement, a group of journalists fighting for justice for the victims of the Maguindanao massacre. He is Sonny Fernandez. Welcome to the show, Sonny.
Hi, good evening, Mai. Good evening, sir.
Thank you for joining us this evening. All right, with the media killings and harassments, let's start with that issue. Has there been any improvement from the previous administrations and the current Aquino administration in terms of addressing that problem? Oh, let's start with you, Vergel.
Well, in the first place, freedom is something that you enjoy or not enjoy from day to day. You may be free today and not free again tomorrow, because freedom is not guaranteed by its enshrinement in law. It is not that. It's the quality of freedom, as I always say, is measured by the risks that one takes in the exercise of that freedom. I mean, if I am able to put out my stories today, but I'm dead the next day, where's freedom there? I mean, so freedom is something that you take from day to day, especially as a journalist.
Do you see serious steps from the Aquino administration in terms of protecting that freedom?
No, we don't think so. But first, I agree with Sir Vergel. No, it is freedom is how brave we can assert our right to inform the people critically of issues. Since 1986, meron ng 154 journalists killed. Of this number, 104 happened during the Arroyo administration, 32 of them journalists sa Ampatuan massacre. As if the Ampatuan massacre was not enough, 14 more journalists were killed under President Noynoy Aquino. So
40 more
14
under this
more,
administration.
14 more. Okay. So 154 lahat yan. Tapos of this number, there were only 10 convictions. All of these triggermen, none of them was mastermind. So talagang na-perpetuate yung media killing sa ating bansa.
That is also an inherent problem, no, Sir Vergel?
Yes, there's a culture of impunity, quite clearly. Because no one goes to jail who should. Just about the only people, a few of them who have done, not really the masterminds, as Sonny has said. So he goes on and on.
So how is the media community addressing this?
On the part of NUJP, meron kaming system of alert na parang lahat ng journalists are being informed na every time na may naharas o threat of libel, ganyan, we ask them to report it to us, then we investigate, tapos we release alerts sa lahat ng news media kasi isang way yan that we think that will deter any threat from being happen. No? Tapos we continue yung education and training sa mga journalists para ma-improve ang kanilang way of reporting. At in all these trainings, sinasama natin ng issues ng media ethics and responsibility parate. At the same time, specific sa mga cases, merong monitoring na ginagawa ang maraming media institutions. Yung NUJP parating nakabantayan sa hearings ng Ampatuan Massacre. Panahon ni Gloria, kung dati ay one hearing per week, tapos si Judge Solis handles over 100 other cases. Ngayon, dahil sa pagpupursige natin na mapabilis yan, three hearings na sa isang
In a
linggo, 2 to
week.
3 hearings. Tapos Judge Solis was freed from handling the other case. So focus lang siya sa
Yes.
Ampatuan Massacre.
I was
Kaya-
gonna ask about the Maguindanao massacre case, but it's still taking too long, isn't it?
Yes, eto lang sa 26 Ampatuan members na kasama sa 196 suspects. Tatlo pa lang na-arraign. At the rate of parang kung 3 years yan, one principal suspect arraigned for every year. So, I don't know if you call that justice. Tapos, bukod dyan, merong less than 100 more na scot-free.
Yes.
Tapos, meron pang attempts to absolve. One of them, like si Zaldi.
Yes.
Pero hindi na pinayagan ng Court of Appeals yan. Tapos, at the same time, hindi pa rin talaga na papolish yung pag-free sa assets ng Ampatuans. Kasi nga, hindi naman sila nagbabangko naka-ipon-ipon ng mga pera So,
and there was an issue
nagagamit to.
over that, right?
Oo,
One of the
namobilize the
assets,
resources.
actually, if one of the Ampatuans was transferred to one of the lawyers, as I understand, right? Or
may isang case but I'm not so familiar. Pero sure thing is yung kanilang assets nagagamit to para they offer this amount like dati 5 million per family. Ngayon 20 million per family inaalok nila sa families. Tapos merong 3 potential suspects na yung napatay.
Yes.
So
yes,
That's particularly dreadful. I mean, the elimination of witnesses.
of the witnesses.
Because these people have the means the power indeed to do it.
And we see that in itself is a problem, and we see it happening.
Oh, we do.
But
Jerry
so what do
Ortega
you,
case,
Yeah.
the isang suspect.
it's happening to this day. And what do you make of all of this, Verhel?
No, it's in the nature of our society. I mean, he must understand that this society, the mother culture operating in this society, is one of patronage. And when you have Ampatuans are themselves patrons, and they have their own clients, and who are prepared to, and they have their own enforcers who are prepared to do things for them. This is the nature of the society.
But do you
And
see?
this is replicated all over where there are political clans.
Yes.
in the
Yes.
country.
Do you see any way to expedite the case?
Well, some people have suggested that the case should be taken as one, as one case by itself, so as not to complicate things.
Imagine you have to wait for all these suspects to be
Exactly,
arraigned one
exactly.
by
That seems to me a
one.
sensible way of approaching it.
So what has happened to that? Is there a petition for this case to be heard as one case?
Actually, sa case ng Ampatuan Massacre,
Yeah.
focus lang si Judge Solis doon. Tinanggal na yung ibang other cases.
Other cases.
Tapos,
Yeah, no, I mean, di ba we're waiting for all the suspects, all
Yeah.
196 suspects to be arraigned, and so far only three have been arraigned.
of the principal or
Yes,
main
yes.
Ampatuan clan members,
Yes.
Yes, so is this gonna go on like that?
well, trabawin na lang dapat ng police ang kanilang trabaho and the prosecutors as well.
I wonder whether the prosecution could be focused on merely the
On the primary
principals.
suspects, yes.
That was also suggested, but it will be up to. I would imagine that certain problems will arise in the legal, in the legal aspects. Of,
One of the suggestions was to evaluate all the evidence against all the 196 suspects, including the witnesses. Tapos kung ano yung mga suspects na may the strongest evidence, strongest cases,
prioritize.
yung na-prioritize natin. Actually, before the commemoration of third Ampatuan Massacre, we consulted with DOJ at niraise natin itong ganitong suggestions na to, itong issues na to.
Okay, let's switch gears now. With the midterm elections nearing, what is your assessment so far on how the COMELEC is preparing for it and how the media is covering election-related stories?
The COMELEC is frightening people.
Why do you say that?
Well, because the COMELEC has appropriated the power to judge whether the media are being fair or not to their subjects. How can that be? I mean, that is certainly beyond the purview of beyond the province of the COMELEC. And I cannot understand that. I cannot understand the COMELEC arrogating unto itself the power to decide whether we in the media are being fair or not to our subjects. I mean, that's clearly an infringement of the of press power.
Sonny, what is your
It's
take?
overstepping the boundaries of its mandate. Especially may provisions sa COMELEC media election rules about reply. Ito ngang reply bill na to hindi nga maipasa sa Congress, pero
The
he
FOI
is implementing it. No, actually the right of reply bill.
Okay.
It
I mean,
is part of
he wants to implement something even before it becomes a law. I can't understand it.
That is prior
In
restraint.
fact, the right of reply by itself is unconstitutional, if you ask me, because it infringes upon press freedom. It abridges. It abridges.
So the FOI bill is considered dead in the 15th
Yes.
Congress. Are you still hoping something's gonna happen in the next Congress?
I have very slim hope. You know, if you look at the Freedom of Information Bill, to me it's a ridiculous thing. Why? Because we are trying to put into law the very idea that public information should be made public so that the public may know. Isn't that ridiculous? And this is precisely. But what would?
No, I think the main point is the access to these public records. That
Now, the point of the law that somehow saves it is that sanctions will be written into the law, so that any keeper or guardian of the information who refuses any request for the revelation of that information will be punished by imprisonment.
Sadly,
That is the point.
I think Pinoy has yet to realize that FOI could be an instrument in his tuwid na daan, yung anti-corruption campaign. Kasi with FOI...
that was one of his campaign promises, by the way.
Indeed, yes. Pero sabi niya yung last na statement, debatehin muna natin mabuti yan.
Why? I mean, I cannot understand the need for any further debate on the issue. You're talking here about public information.
For the past 15 years,
Yes.
nandiyan nakasalan
You know
yan.
why?
Babasa
I
pa
tell
siya.
you why. Because this is a battle between power and freedom. Because the freedom of information law makes people in power its potential targets. They will have to be required to reveal themselves. Naturally, they don't like it. So naturally, consequently, they are not very eager to pass that law, because it will require them to reveal themselves. So they will not want that.
Okay,
Saka they have this notion na ang mag-benefit dito sa FOI, media. Pero we get our stories, some information that we gather, pero ang end user pa rin naman yung taong bayan.
Okay, let's go back to the elections. What do you say to proposals that the COMELEC should actually spearhead debates of our senatorial candidates, and for all the media networks to cover it, so that there are no, caller that's put into a network's hosting of such debates?
Sir, hindi niya trabaho yun.
It's ridiculous.
Yan ang trabaho talaga natin. Magbilang
As
siya.
media organizations.
Yeah, as media organization.
Actually, the COMELEC is usurping the role of the media. You know, if my paper decides to promote only one candidate during this election, the COMELEC can do nothing about it in point of law, because that is the nature of press freedom. What is guaranteed here is plurality of voices. There are so many media, and therefore the chances of fairness are greater. than if there were only 1, 2, or 3 media organizations. That's just about it.
Okay, we have to take a break, gentlemen. News Cafe will return after these reminders. You're still watching News Cafe on the Solar News channel. We're still joined by Vergel Santos and Sunny Fernandez. Again, thank you for joining us tonight, gentlemen.
You're welcome.
Okay, with the midterm elections approaching, how safe are journalists today?
Well, this early, I think 2 or 3 election-related violence happened sa ilang journalists, isa sa Bulacan, ganyan. And we're still monitoring, investigating these cases to confirm. It's, although ang Patuan massacre proved that the election period could be the most dangerous period in our political life. So we should not take chances as far as our safety is concerned.
Do you still think another Maguindanao massacre can happen with?
We hate to think that could happen again. It's really chilling, it's really inimical, it's revolting.
The likelihood of anything like this happening is to do with how far the place is
But
from the
private
light,
armies
from Metro
are
Manila, for
still-
instance, or from a city.
Private
It's usually
armies
the
are
place.
still there, right? I mean, these clans, the
Oh, they're
political
still there.
families.
They're still in operation. They still have power. They still have money. They still have arms. That, given all those things alone, I mean, you cannot really say.
So if we want to address like safety, security, we have to address a lot of things that may factor in yung warlordism,
Yes.
yung patronage politics, yung
Yes.
media ethics, yung working conditions of the media mismo.
And that is really going to the root of the problem. But
Yes.
Levels of
do we
professionalism.
see serious steps being taken to go to the root of the problem, like warlordism and
The government stopped. Di ba before si Arroyo parang puta pa commission o ano a group part of
to
member pa nga,
dismantle the
to dismantle
private armies?
Yes. Sadly, hindi tinuloy ni Pinoy itong ano na to.
So, Vergel, is there anything being done by the other media groups,
No.
CMFR, to revive?
For our part, all that we can do is, as San has said, 3 things: educate, alert, expose. These are the things. The more we educate our practitioners, the higher the standards of professionalism will become, and the more we alert them to these things, the more cautious there will be, and therefore there will be less the likelihood that they would be victims of violence. And then by exposing all these things, exposure of the truth is always liberating in a certain way. Not only that, liberating and preventive as well. So those are about the only things that we can do. But if you look at the levels of maturity and education of the society, I mean, I must say that we can expect more and more of these things to happen in our society.
Okay, let's move on to another topic we should talk about. What is the essential difference of newspapers, radio, and television in terms of how news reporting is done, and what are the limitations of each one?
Well, definitely radio, broadcast, the broadcast media have a wider reach than the newspapers. You know that the total circulation of newspapers has not grown in the last generation. Nothing. But then the standards of professionalism has to do very much with the natures of the media. Like if you happen to be a newspaper person, you have all day to put together, to chase after your story and put it together. If you happen to be in broadcast, you are racing against an hourly deadline or something like that. And therefore, I would imagine that if you were in broadcast, you are forced to be predisposed to less than rigorous practice. So, and considering how complex and how controversial the issues are in this country, not easy to make the people understand easily or even quickly what's happening around them.
In broadcast, we're so much constrained by time. Kasi like before, I used to produce news stories. We limit the voice-over stories of reporters to 1 minute 30 seconds. Unlike a newspaper where somebody can write extensively on any report. And then, of course, sa media, ang daming production values that you need to attend to, like names, cartoons, yung mga graphics, kung meron kang statistics. Sa newspapers, may graphics, layout artists, so easier and less expensive as well.
I was asking you this earlier. Do you see an issue with media persons doing the news on prime time, on TV, and then later on you see them as radio commentators? Because they could voice their opinions on radio, right?
That should not be a problem at all. I mean, if you know what you're doing, I mean, it all has to do with whether you know what you're doing or not. You know, if you don't, you shouldn't be there at all. This is the problem. But if you do, I'm sure you know your place wherever you might be at any time, whether you're in broadcast or in radio or in print. I mean, it's all a matter of knowing what you're doing.
So the laws are enough
But
to
the
police.
problem, the greater problem, it seems to me, is the confusion caused by online. You know, you know there is a huge online crew of pseudo journalists now in operation,
Yes.
and naturally,
Yeah, I was going to ask, where does online stand in all of these things?
the technology allows just about everyone who is not yet a journalist to style himself as a journalist. This is the problem.
And the problem is there's no accountability. Unlike in newspapers, media outfits, where we can also publish online stories, we're accountable to our media outfits as well.
Yes.
Although I'd like to add sa dun sa problem na sinasabi natin kanina, maraming kailangan talagang tabuin sa media mismo. Hindi lang professionalism, education, pati yung working conditions as well. Kasi all these things, even the national policies, help promote freer and critical expression of ideas.
And like you said, Verhel, earlier, raising the level or raising the bar of professionalism.
Yeah, we need to do that, and we should start from inside. I mean, that can be done from inside. Not easy to do, by the way, given the because there is, if you observe the deterioration in the professional deterioration cuts across all practices, not only not only in journalism, but in other professions as well. So it's a larger problem. Actually, it is a larger problem.
Okay, final words, Sunny?
Yun lang, I think this election, mahalaga yung papel ng mga journalists dahil sa electoral democracy, isa tayo sa stimulants to make this society more dynamic through our vigorous critical reporting. But then of course, dapat this is time to be conscious of our safety sa ating coverage. Kasi naging naging scoop-oriented, exclusive-oriented, ganyan lang sa TV, ganyan. So I think it's time to be conscious of all these things.
Okay. I'd hate to cut our discussion, but that is all the time we have. I would like to thank our guests again for joining me tonight. Vergel Santos of CMFR and Sunny Fernandez of the NUJP. Thank you so much, gentlemen. In behalf of Jing Magsaysay, I'm Mai Rodriguez. Join us again next Friday for another round of 360-degree discussion right here on News Cafe. Salamat po.